This foundation is a nonprofit organization that has made research voyages to all 5 of the world's major gyres, including the North Pacific Gyre, resulting in a body of authoritative research publications, data, and educational programs on marine debris. As president of this organization, Bill has visited and studied the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and the world's major ocean gyres. Bill's going to talk to you about marine plastic pollution, how it is quantified, its impacts on human health, and possible solutions. And he does have a display in the back of the room for more information. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Francis.
Aloha. Aloha. You know, it's a great pleasure to be here in the islands again. My wife Marita and I enjoy coming to all the islands. We spend a lot of time on the Big Island, and she happens to be the one manning the table in the back. Marita Francis is also the executive director of the Aguilita Marine Research Foundation, and she's the one responsible for getting me into this mess. But follow your bliss, as they say. So I'm going to dig right into this. Boy, I tell you what, I hate to follow somebody who's as good at photography and speaking as David. My gosh, weren't those wonderful photos? Well, thank you again. But what we want to do as an organization is preserve and protect a lot of what you saw that David showed you. We see that we need to keep an environment, we need to have a healthy ocean, and everybody that lives in that ocean and depends on it needs us to maintain that ocean as a sustainable and free from what our organization is really concerned about, and that is the impact of plastic pollution. Several decades ago, the convenience of throwaway materials as an outfall really of World War II and new chemistries and new things that came into being resulted in us getting rid of a lot of the traditional packaging materials and this wonderful new material called plastic. And what that has resulted in is a worldwide explosion of production of plastic. You can see how that peaked a little bit in 2008. There's a little bit of a downturn because of the economic distress around the world, but believe me, the plastic age has not ended, and that curve is going to go right up again. And the question that we see, and our founder, Captain Charles Moore, discovered in a Transpac race back in 1999, was that plastic, in fact, goes someplace, and it doesn't always necessarily go where we want it to go. A lot of the plastic does go to municipal waste, where it's just put in a landfill, stuffed there. Some of it goes into durable goods, like the cars and parts of the airplanes that I flew on to get over here. Some of it's recycled, unfortunately a precious small amount. I've talked to several recycling organizations, and I'm talking to a group in Michigan later this year about trying to recycle more. But there's a whole bunch of plastic that we don't know where it goes. And as Captain Moore made his voyage and went through the doldrums of the North Pacific Gyre and saw this material floating around, his natural curiosity told him that he needed to figure this out. A sailor, a surfer, somebody who loves the ocean, loves the water, being on the water, said this just doesn't look right. And so he started asking questions. So what I'm going to share with you is a little bit of the journey, a little bit of the history of what the Aguilita Marine Research Foundation has done to investigate 4 things. One is the reality of plastic pollution. No, there's really not a trash island. There's not a big pile of trash out there twice the size of Texas, but I'll try to share with you what the reality is. We'll talk about its effects on ocean life. Greg alluded to some of that, and one of our speakers tonight is going to talk about entanglement. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Food web contamination, and then also some industry and personal solutions we can take. We have so much to talk about. It's such a huge issue that I'm going to try to compress it all into a very short time period, because I want everybody to be able to leave the room, go back out and enjoy Hawaii and the beautiful evening. Did you see the moon out there last night? It was gorgeous. So we'll talk first about the realities of plastic pollution. The United Nations, in their 2011 yearbook, mentions plastic as an emerging issue. It is being noticed, it is being quantified. The world is becoming aware that this is something we need to understand what's going to happen to it. And it's not just the large pieces, but I'll talk a fair bit about the smaller plastic fragments as well. Where does it all come from? One of the things we say is that, you know what, the ocean is downhill from everywhere. If you look at watersheds, one of our educational programs is called Watershed Wonders. We try to educate students about the fact that lightweight pieces of material that can be borne by the wind or by the rain or can be washed downstream have a chance to make it all the way to the ocean. I spoke at a meeting in Minnesota at the headwaters of the Mississippi River, and that over 1,000-mile river has the potential to take a small piece of plastic or a plastic bag and take it all the way down the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico. I think you saw a couple of numbers that Greg showed early on, some of the good work that the Pacific Whale Foundation is doing. This is reinforced by studies from the Ocean Conservancy. It's one of the largest coastal cleanup groups in the world. The interesting thing about this is if you look at the top 6 cigarette filters, which are found, everybody know that cigarette filters are actually made of plastic? They're not natural. And I don't smoke, but at one time I kind of, maybe did a little. I had no idea. And you see people that, the cigarette butt doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it is. Plastic bags, of course, we all know about that. Bag bans have become a popular political football, particularly in California, where I live. Food wrappers, all that. But the point is, the top 6 items that are the largest in number are all made of plastic. This is the only published document I could find that tried to quantify how fast things degrade. And there are horrible errors in it, but the point is that nobody really knows how fast things degrade, particularly in a marine environment. Aluminum can, 200 years, who knows? A foam cup, 50 years. It'll break down into small pieces, but I guarantee you those pieces of foam are going to be around a lot longer than 50 years. Microfilament fishing line, 600 years, who knows? Who knows? Tin can, 50 years, maybe that's pretty close on that. An apple core, 2 months, that I don't know. But anyway, the point is we just don't know, but what we do know is that plastic does not belong in the ocean. Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, who spoke at our youth summit last year, where we had over 100 students from 13 different countries come to participate in leadership training about how to go back to their communities and make a difference in stopping plastic pollution in their own community, says, we've taken too much. We've put too much bad stuff in the ocean. We've taken too much good stuff out of the ocean, and we are destroying the edge of the ocean. And particularly in the Hawaiian Islands, those ocean edges are very noticeable. We want to talk a little bit about why plastic is harmful. Because, it's obvious when you look at it, it's not very pretty. But when you look a little closer at the volume of plastic that is out there, this is not very far from my house in Los Angeles. This is one of the river's runoff areas. Los Angeles, huge metropolitan area, 13 million people, something like that. This is a little closer to home for people out here. Trash Beach, Camellia Beach, south side of the Big Island. Oahu. Again, these types of pictures but are not unique to what's happening around our world. All these pictures legitimate for a growing problem of ever-increasing plastic pollution on the beaches and the coasts of countries all over the world. Where does it come from? A lot of people say, hey, you know what, we got to stop those doggone cruise lines. They're dumping all this stuff. Reality is when you analyze the material, about 80% of it comes from land. You can debate that number a little bit, but the different things like single-use materials, convenience packaging, obviously natural disasters, and the unfortunate experience of March of 2011